Hi there, I'm Mark Phillips, and welcome to another episode of Enhancing the Human Experience, the podcast designed to help you get the most out of life. And in this episode, I'm going to be telling you a story, and it definitely has, powerful concepts and themes behind it that you can really put to work right now in your day-to-day moments to get the most out of life. And the title of the story is A Tale of Two Minds. And really, the reality of it is that it's the story that we all face every day, every moment. And as I go through this story, which I want to set it up and kind of give you the rundown of how to view this story and how to approach it, it all is taking place in any given moment at this moment in time, right? But as I go through this and tell you the story of aligning yourself with divine mind, infinite intelligence, all of the good things we all want, or race mind, mortal mind, competitive mind, all of the things that bring struggle and strife and heartache to our life, you'll see which one or how you can align yourself with each of those components, right? With each of those outcomes and each of those types of mind, because we always have a choice, right? In every given moment, we have a choice to align ourselves with divine mind by thinking certain ways and of certain ideas, or align ourselves with race mind, which is lower mind, right, by thinking other things. And as I go through this list, it'll show you the dichotomy between each of these ideas, and you're going to see very quickly what you're going to want to align with. I know that I do, and as I go through this, it'll become really clear. But before we get into that, I just want to let you know you can always find the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, and Google Play, eventually probably SoundCloud. So if you're looking to subscribe, you can certainly go and subscribe there. And if you like the podcast, it would be super awesome if you would leave a review on iTunes. I'd very much appreciate it. I do read all those, and that would be awesome. So let's get into the story. So this is a story of Susan. And Susan is just like all of us. At any given moment in time, Susan has a choice on how to align her thinking, right? She can think things are going great, or she can think things are going bad. That is one level of explanation of how Susan can align her thinking. But I'm going to go into a list here of diverse ways of thinking, ideas that are aligned with divine mind versus ideas that are aligned with race mind. And you'll be able to see the options that are always available to us. So this story takes place in one moment, right? And whether, you can kind of put yourself into the story of Susan, and you can kind of put yourself in her position and see which way you'd like to think and how you'd like to make up your mind, right? That's all we're doing at every moment in time is making up our mind. But that then becomes the foundation to how we feel and the actions that we take, and of course the results we get, right? It starts with our thinking. And so at any given point in time, Susan has the option to think creatively versus thinking competitively, right? Creativity and thinking creatively is a divine mind attribute, whereas competition and thinking competitively is a race mind attribute, right? The first thing that comes to mind about this first example is in business, right? What businesses have a smooth sailing open sea, as they say, in the world, right? It's the businesses that are creating new markets, creating new value, finding new opportunities that no one else has seen before. Those businesses have clear sailing because there's no one in that market. It's the businesses that really struggle and have to get into pricing competition and everything else that a business has to do in order to gain customers when they're competing in the marketplace, right? If you're not inventing new value and creating and innovating, then your life is going to be much more difficult if you're a business owner. That also translates into personal lives, right? These principles are universal, and so you can kind of see creativity is a divine mind attribute. Competitiveness, the competitive mindset, is a race mind attribute. The next one here is infinite. When you're thinking infinite possibilities, that's a divine mind attribute, as opposed to limited, right? That again plays into any area of our life, right? Business, relationships, wealth and abundance. the reality is there is an infinite supply and an infinite like stream of available options that are coming to us, opportunities always available to us, right? But when you're in race mind, in mortal mind, everything closes in and you think you don't have any more opportunities, you don't have any options. And that's a dangerous place to be, because it'll limit the actions you take. It'll make you feel really poor, for first of all, limit your actions, and of course limit your results. You'll actually project those results. You'll actually project that onto your results, and nobody wants that. So the third one down on the list here is abundant mindset is a divine mind quality, whereas a scarcity mindset is a race mind quality, right? That doesn't need a whole lot of explanation there. Thinking abundance will open up, new ideas will come to you, new opportunities will reveal themselves, and you'll actually create that abundance in your world. But if you think there is scarcity, guess what? That's going to manifest in scarce situations and results for you. The next one here, and I like this one a lot. This one is flow versus restrict or resist. Now, this is a really critical one, where we talk about flow is a divine mind attribute, whereas resist or restrict is a race mind attribute, right? Speaking of the resistance, that is what Stephen Pressfield talks about in his book, The War of Art, The Art of War, The War of Art. I always get that wrong. It is the War of Art, and I always get that backwards. But it's that resistance that we're always facing all the time that we need to push through. So that's that dichotomy there. Divine mind attribute is power versus force is a race mind attribute, right? This is where Emmett Fox talks about don't force things, right? Allow things to come to you, do your work, in giving up the attachment to the outcome, right? Allow it to come to you. Don't force things, because whenever you force things, you may get something that wasn't meant for you, right? And it will never stay then, right? We have to build up that spiritual power and that energy as we go forward, and then the things we want will naturally come to us. We'll naturally stay in that ideal, intuitive way, and we will go towards what we want and what is really meant for us. Power versus force, that's a huge one. The next one, relaxed versus tense, right? Relaxed is a divine mind attribute, whereas tense and stopped up is a race mind attribute, right? Because that's part of the resistance that's feeding in when we allow ourselves to become tense and allow tension to get into our bodies and our minds, right? The next one here, produce or productivity is a divine mind attribute, whereas consume or consumption is a race mind. Now I realize that in being human beings, we sometimes have to play both of those cards, right? We're both consuming and producing. We're both giving and receiving at various points in time. It's just we don't want to let the scales tip too far out of balance, and we want to be producing more than we're consuming. The next one here is active versus inactive. Active being a divine mind quality or attribute, whereas inactive being a race mind quality or attribute. When we look at the world, nature is super, super active, right? Even when it seems like it's not, there's a lot of stuff going on there. Human beings sometimes have the tendency to get, lethargic and slow down in our production and our activity levels, and that ultimately becomes our demise, right? So we have to stay active, whether it's in our minds, bodies, or soul. We want to keep that activity level at a nice hum as we go through life. The next one down here is faith versus doubt. This is another huge one, right? Having faith that what we want and the work we're putting in is going to come to fruition and bear the fruits we want. Having faith that just because maybe something didn't go your way one day doesn't mean it's not going to go the next, right? Never giving up that faith. One of my favorite sayings, and I don't have it in front of me right now, but it is something to the effect of, if man had the faith of a mustard seed, he would move mountains, right? It's a biblical saying. I do not know where I don't know the origin right off the top of my head, but it's one of my favorites, because having that faith is so critical throughout all of our life. Whereas remaining in doubt is a race mind quality and will really shut us down, and that's what we don't want. The next one down here, also a great one, prosperity versus poverty. Prosperity being a divine mind quality and poverty being a race mind quality, right? We don't really have to talk too much about that. There's a lot of poverty in the world, and we always want to align ourselves with prosperous thinking, with prosperity consciousness, and develop that on an ongoing basis, because there's a huge pull in the world to pull us into those negative lower states, and that's what we've got to resist by building up our spiritual power, building up our thought power, and really going toward the light, so to speak, right? The next one, courage or fearlessness versus fear. Whereas courage and fearlessness are divine mind qualities, and fear is a race mind quality, right? The way I look at this one here is that we are divine beings, we are spiritual beings having a human experience, as Wayne Dyer talked about. And we have to remember that, and that helps build our courage. It helps make us fearless, right? But when we think that we're a limited human being, not connected to something greater or more powerful than ourselves, that will allow fear to set in, right? And that's an easy way to bring fear in. So I think about that one quite a bit because it's so big. Everything we do in life, it requires courage and fearlessness, right? So we have to develop that if we want to realize our goals and dreams. The last one here on this list is harmony versus discord. Cultivating a harmonious mindset and our harmonious thoughts is much more beneficial for getting what we want in life and realizing our goals and dreams than cultivating discord, right? Because things are going to always work out, right? Having that faith, building those harmonious thoughts, we know we're going to get where we want to go, and we have to build that faith and success consciousness and prosperity consciousness, all of the good things we want. We have that faith that it's coming. So that's the list, and that's kind of, it will show you how to align with divine mind, or ideas and thoughts that are aligned with divine mind versus ideas and thoughts, thinking processes that are aligned with race mind. And I'll put this list up on my Instagram page and probably also definitely in the show notes. So if you want to capture it as a JPEG photo, and you can kind of just look at it. Now, of course, this is not an exhaustive list, right? You can add to this. These are just some of the big polar opposites that I see all the time and that I've kind of accumulated over the years as I'm thinking about this tale of two minds. But let's go back to Susan. Now, at any given point in time, our character in this story, Susan, can choose to align herself with any one of those components. And obviously, that's sowing the seeds in her consciousness of certain outcomes, right? And it's definitely propping up the outcomes. It's building the outcomes. And there's no guarantee that you're going to get a great outcome the outcomes that we want are built upon the thoughts that we think, right? Of course, they require work and action and diligence, absolutely. But it's these thought seeds, these idea seeds that really start the process, right? If you don't think that there's abundance in the world and that their life on earth is abundant, you're not going to do things that are going to help create more abundance, right? Those thought processes and those seeds create the outcomes. So I think it's really powerful. So that's it. That's a tale of two minds, how to align yourself with infinite success. And I want to thank you for listening. I really do appreciate it. Like I said, you can pick up the podcast in any of your favorite venues and also find it on my website, gmarkphillips.com. And thanks very much. I really appreciate it. All the best. Health, wealth, and success to you. Bye-bye. We'll talk to you soon.